seen the movie. They haven't given me a single instruction. But I suppose I'll introduce everyone one by one. So let's start with who wants to come out first? Santiago. The director, Santiago Mitre.
No, quiero estar acá al lado tuyo. I want to be here.
Who should we introduce?
I think Axel Kuschevatzky.
Axel Kuschevatzky, please.
Campbell, productora, the producer.
And my favorite, Victoria Lozano.
Alonso.
You're all my favorite. All right, so let's just jump right in. I don't want to bore people with an introduction. I would like to say that it's really an honor to be able to sit here with you all. I was at the premiere in Venice, I have a very personal relationship to this story as well, alongside Argentina. The reason I grew up here was because my family fled the Chilean dictatorship and they were able to survive, so the context is very powerful for our family. So thank you for letting me be here with you all and to share this moment with you guys. All right, so let's just start with the obvious. What can I ask you, Santiago? What's the genesis of the movie? How did it come together, and why did you want to make it?
Well, thank you for what you said. It's been amazing on all the journey with this film. How since we started to show it in Venice and in many other film festivals, how people from different countries, Latin American countries who had these similar stories, of course, they felt very attached to the story and very moved, but also in many places all over the world, how the film could connect, telling this story that it's so Argentinian about this specific subject and this specific moment. It was we realized that it could connect a lot with audiences all over the world, and it was amazing. And I think it was a gift that this film gave us, that we could, through talking about this trial, we realized that we were not only talking about Argentina in 1995, and we were talking about many relevant issues and connected to the history of many different countries. But sorry, we'll come back to your question. I mean, this trial was something I admire for my whole life. It's a unique case, and a very brave one that a country trial the dictatorship only 1 year after the dictatorship ended, in a context where the militaries were still super powerful, and the region was still governed by military dictatorships. So it took a lot of courage by the government to make the decision to do this trial, but also by the judges, prosecutors, and everyone, and many of the witnesses who sat there and tell for the first time in the history the atrocities they lived, the way they were kidnapped, the ones who could survive, or the families who look for their relatives. So it was an amazing topic, and I really wanted to do a film about this because I thought it was something that needed to be remembered, to bring back to memory for my country, but also for other places in the world. But then, when I began to do the research, I find out so many things that made me realize that the film was even better than when my first intuition told me. Like this thing that the prosecutor could not find a team to build a trial. So because the people in the justice were not believing that the trial will happen or didn't wanting the trial to happen, so he had to team with these 20-year-old lawyers or not even lawyers to do this case. It was an amazing revelation for me, which I thought it was a great image to bring to these days.
How old were you when the trial was taking place? Would you?
I was
strong in your memory as a child.
I was only 4 years old. My mother working in the justice. Like
4 years old.
I started with the jokes. This is the. Let me do at least 2 minutes of
serious talk before going into shows.
Before we get into the comedy routine.
No, yeah, my mother worked in the justice during her whole life, so I went many times to the place where the trial happened. And when I was raised on these values of the justice, on the importance of justice to consolidate democracy. But I think Axel and Victoria have more memories because
we're older. That's the thing.
I was about to say that, and I realized that
we are old.
Sorry.
We are old. That's what he's saying. Let's just translate.
Yeah, I'm sorry, everyone. That was so rude. Sorry.
No, but I'd be curious in terms of like its shadow and the way it lives in the memory of your experience. I can really relate to being a baby in terms of what my parents went through and the family went through, and how it hovers, for the rest of your life, and to have like an event like this one that has specific context, especially, I think it's amazing to be able to share it for people to learn more and to know more about it. I didn't know so much about this trial even, before I saw the movie, so I would love it if it's not in the list of questions, but I would love to know like what your memories of this event was.
Well,
or for your family.
You came here before the trial. A year before?
I was here in '84, yeah. So, but for me, is hearing about the trial from here, which was a fractured sense of sadness and happiness. Not that you're ever happy because someone is going to go spend their lives in prison, but happiness for those mothers and grandparents that look for their kids forever, that in some level you feel like justice has been taken center stage. But sad to not be there, and relieved that there was a sense of it worked, the system worked. Why? Because some people that had never done it before did it. They took the truth, they created a memory, and justice prevailed, which sounds like a slogan, and yet in this case, it worked.
I think that we weren't completely aware of the impact of the trial, what it was going on. We didn't knew back then that it was going to change universal justice, because after this trial, the international court was created, and a lot of genocide were investigated, and dictators were persecuted all around the world.
It's the first country to have.
It's the first country
taken.
So I don't want to draw a parallel because it's unfair. But if you think of Nuremberg as a watershed, it's something that changed history.
Yeah.
I mean, we can say that this trial followed those steps.
And I think that a lot of young people in Argentina that were born in democracy are realizing, and all of us are realizing, how important that trial was now that we have an interrupted democracy for 40 years, which wasn't the case in '85. Maybe I think that the historical perspective of time gives a lot more weight, maybe at the time where a lot of people were still scared. I mean, the sense was that it was an important moment, that justice had been served. But then again, the common thing in Argentina was that democracy was interrupted during the entire 20th century. So I cannot blame some people if at the time they felt like, well, maybe this is not like, yeah, but with time, yeah, it was a big thing. And we haven't interrupted democracy for 40 years, thank God.
Yeah. I would ask, what do you feel is sort of the context of this kind of a trial, and decades later, how it sort of deals with our notions of democracy today?
No, it's a very interesting question, and it's what I tried to say on the beginning, like.
And we just notions of justice and the idea of like functioning democracy and how to make that work under the law.
I think Axel has a very good speech about this because it's something we've been discussing a lot. I mean, since we started with the film, a lot of things happened. I will say what you usually say, but I'm quoting you. Now,
okay, you can. Yeah. Well, when we started working on the film, we thought it was a film about Argentina in 1985, and it became something completely different in front of our eyes. Because in the meantime you had January the 6th. In the meantime, you have Ukraine. In the meantime, you have a bunch of guys trying to get into the Brazilian, government palace. There were a lot of instances where, individual freedom was curtailed. And we do think somehow, because this is a conversation we already had, that this movie, it's about protecting democracy through justice, about accountability, and the fact that nobody should be above the law anywhere, not even in this country. Yeah. Sorry, I get emotional with this.
No,
but it's true.
But it's highly emotional, especially it being the first country to do so and to take on Goliath in that way. But Santiago, please.
No, I was not going to. I mean, I agree with what Axel said. It's. I realize that this event is it's an example on how to deal with. On making a better democracy. And it was something that probably in 1985 for the president and the people who took the decision was something that an intuition they had. But now it seems like so clear that justice has to prevail over power in every country, in every situation. Like it's one of the fundamental bases of the democracy to have an independent justice investigating and prosecuting and. ¿Cómo se dice? Accountability, I don't never understand how to use that word. Accountability. But I never, it's a word that
responsabilidad.
Es responsabilidad. Okay. I don't know. Sorry.
¿Cómo decirlo en español?
Sí, que no entiendo, I don't understand the word accountability. I know that...
I'll send you an email.
It took me...
Hacerse cargo.
Tell a joke while I look for the next question.
He doesn't understand the word Connecticut either.
Oh, that's a good thing.
We talked about this, so it's the C, I think it gets in the way. And, Connecticut. But I want to say that it is really about truth to power. Yeah. It's truth to power. Today, yesterday, tomorrow, here in Ukraine, in Mongolia, or in downtown. It doesn't matter where you are. It is about truth to power. There's no time frame to ever take that step. The more that we do, and especially I look up to all the youngsters that are here today, it is your responsibility for your world to leave that legacy. It is truth to power every time. So how is the movie, how was and is the movie being received in Argentina?
No, it's absolutely amazing. I mean, it was one of the films that brought people back to the theaters after the pandemic. A lot of people, older people that were not going back to the cinemas came back. Yeah. And it was like a national cause in a way. There was a sense of community with the film in the theaters. It was very impressive. I mean, we went into the theaters, regular venues, and the people were there, were connecting with the film, were laughing, were moving, were clapping. A lot of people crying. A lot of people saw the film many times, 10 times, 15 times. And I think in Argentina at the moment, and in the recent times, we're desperately trying to get points of reunion, some things we could be proud of and we could share as a community, and not only football. But after the World Cup, there is kind of this feeling for the film that...
You're having a good year, aren't you?
Yeah.
It's
People
deserved.
want the film to do good, and everyone is so happy about the road that has that we've been through. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing.
No, but also I would say that like in many societies, the Argentinian society has been so split politically, and there's so much anger and there's so much confrontation. So I think this film is showing, in a way, what the society can be, when they fight together for a cause that is right. And I think that people who went to see the film, besides their personal opinions in the political subjects of the moment, they saw something that the country did good, and it's something that where they can feel reflected as a nation and make them feel proud. So I think at least for a moment we could transcend a little bit this grieta, how we call it in Argentina, which is
it's a rip.
Which is
the unifying element of the undeniability of what's right around this. Yeah. So that's very powerful.
And also something connecting different generations that was very powerful, grandparents talking to the grandchildren, or daughters about this time. Our history.
And I would like something else. We Latinos being also vastly underrepresented. The fact that you, being from Chile, people from Brazil, Uruguay, everywhere, finding a common voice through this film has been really, really powerful.
Yeah.
It's also, it's not like it's not happening. It's happening. It's happening in many places. Peru being one of them. It's happening. So this is not, it's not something that happened 40 years ago and it will never happen again. It's happening today.
Yeah.
So it's a very current event of what society goes through.
And then Julio Estracera.
No, that's the bad way of saying in the Argentinian Spanish.
How do you say it?
Because it's trasera, but we say trasera. Cuidado niño, where it doesn't.
Okay, can I tell a ridiculous story? We had a dog, and my younger brother wanted to name him Spike. And he just gradually, in no time, he was Spikey.
Yeah.
So Julio Estracera.
And then you had a dog that was Estracera, and I was going to lose my
But how did they? How were they involved? How did they receive the process? How do they feel about it?
Estracera passed away some time ago, so I didn't have the chance to talk to him. But I did talk.
How did his family?
I spoke a lot to his son.
Yeah.
And I went through his family to understand who Estracera was and how he lived that period in his life. So I think that for me, going through his family is what it got me the idea of telling the story how I got it through and beginning the story through his family, through the eyes of his relationship with his son and with his daughter. It was very interesting for me to be able to talk to all those people who did this trial, because most of the judges are alive and still active, and the people from the prosecutor team, of course, they're very active, and so to be able to speak to them and to know them and to build a relationship with them made me want to write better, made me want to represent them in a way that when they could watch the film, they could feel that we were telling, the truth, or at least the spirit of the truth of what they lived. So it was an amazing experience to do all this research. And Luis Moreno Campo, who was the deputy prosecutor, he was very close to us in the beginning. I had a lot of interviews with him, and he was great. But and he's been very supportive with us. So you're actually doing some
press with us,
Q&As, talking after screens with us.
There's also something just frankly, beyond the politics, that's delicious about the movie because of its era in that, and a kind of visual nostalgia when I saw the movie to really make it so it's kind of easy to get eras wrong, I think, and I was really impressed with how genuinely the time capsule of it was portrayed, and I don't know. This isn't a question. It's just.
You can elaborate on that. So.
But talk about that anyway.
I can say to that the art direction,
like the design,
the costume designer, Monica. I mean the props, everything. They worked very hard to do an 80s that was not estridente, you know, like
that wasn't like Stranger Things or something.
And that people could
The wedding
Which is
singer.
fantastic. But just a different tone.
No, I mean, because of the 80s in Argentina, like probably in Chile, were not the same 80s
No,
like
it's like
in
the
the
same
US.
as that were
Yeah,
happening in the suburbs
yeah.
of the US.
We didn't have as much color as the American had.
Yeah.
It was a little bit desaturated.
No, but the main thing is that we use our personal archives. On every meetings, we all brought our pictures from when we were on that time, and we used the pictures a lot to remember the texture of the kitchen, of the table in the kitchen, of the sort of plates that they use. So it was like it's recreating a period which is not that far from here. So
Yeah, yet it's really far, but it's far.
It's really far.
I mean, the
It
city.
scares the shit out of me.
This is an important thing. No, but I know. Anyway, but you know, I think it's the city changed a lot, and there was, I mean, you know, making Buenos Aires look like Buenos Aires at that time. Period. That was hard.
it was hard, yeah.
Yeah.
help of VFX, a great VFX team, aside from scoutings, locations.
Yes, but
what triggers the memory is different for each person. So I think in this film we wanted to be very precise about the details and to be able to offer in the working space, in the family space, in the music, in the little things, you know, be generous in what would trigger the memory of everyone that we in Argentina.
There's an awful detail that I really loved in the film because it's like makes me travel back in time. It's in the beginning when they are going to work and the kids are going to the school and the daughter asks for a cigarette to the father. Because I remember my mother giving me cigarettes when I was 15.
It's not happening anymore.
My mother would pull up to the grocery store and make me, and I was 7. And I would have, you know, I'd go and buy her the smokes. She didn't feel like parking the car. All right, let's do a little shift because there's such an incredible, the closing argument that Estracera makes was an iconic moment in the trial and of course in the political history that is now, you know, Argentina. How did you approach that in terms of, was it, just talk about that because I would find that incredibly intimidating.
I was very intimidated before doing that, and I was always very worried. Of course, it was like the climax of the film, the more important sequence in the film, and we were working in this sort of tradition of trial films, and we were always thinking like, well, this is a trial movie in the end. So in the trial movies, at the end, you see a prosecutor making his final speech. But usually in films, the prosecutors, they walk around the stage and they point to the juries and they shout to accuse and they do that, handle it, they do everything. And it's like a theater play. But and it's great, and I love that kind of films. But I wanted to be very accurate on how our trial happened. So our trial was a guy with a paper during one day and a sequence of 12 minutes reading. So I was very afraid on how we will manage to bring the intensity that the sequence was needing. But the first day that we were very lucky that we were allowed to shoot in the real courtroom where the trial happened. So I went to do a first scouting there chair, and I put the chair where Strasera was seated, and then I put the chair where Videla and the other commanders were seated, and I realized that they were this distance.
Yeah.
Like Strasera did that speech, that amazing speech, only less than a meter away from Videla. And that gave me the chill. I could imagine, like I was sitting where Strasera was, and I imagined how he must feel, and he must felt at the moment when Videla was sitting there and he was about to start to do this speech. And I realized that I could work with that, with the proximity, like shots and reverse shots to make them always near in the frame and to feel the
And the strange intimacy between the two facing off like that.
Yeah, and then there's Ricardo Darín, who is such an amazing actor. Yes, and I'm a little bit a pain in the ass sometimes when I'm directing, and Ricardo hates rehearsing.
Yeah.
He likes reading the script. He likes like taking notes and participating in every decision, but he doesn't like to rehearsal. And I'm always chasing him like to rehearse, and always like making traps. Actually, we live very close together, so I'm going to the grocery. Ricardo, are you at home? I'm going to say goodbye. And then I buy something and I go to the house and I tell him, do you want to read this that I wrote? And I was tricking him, but it was very difficult to make him rehearse. But he knows what he has to do. He understands. He has been acting since he was 10 years old.
It's like, Meryl, will you rehearse this scene one more time?
Yeah. Well, and I was very worried that Ricardo always said, "Don't worry, it's going to be fine. Don't worry, it's going to be fine." And actually, that day came, and it was not fine. It was amazing. We did it it was impossible not to cry when at the first shot and after the. I will not say the number because we did more times than what Ricardo deserved. But the people keep on clapping and crying during the whole day, and it was probably one of the most intense days I believe in my cinematic life. It was amazing.
I didn't realize that you shot it in the actual courthouse that the trial took place. I didn't know that. That's incredible.
It's incredible, yeah.
Victoria,
we shot most of the film during the pandemic, and for that scene was the first moment that we actually got 300 people in that courtroom together without the mask. It was a very special, unique atmosphere. You know, it was everyone felt like justice was being served again. You know, like at the end of each take, the applause was legit. It was amazing. And also in the Adriana Calvo testimony.
Yeah, the lady that gave birth on a car.
Yeah. It's amazing that there's always a magic that has to go into making something, but I feel like with this movie there really is this translatable experience that it doesn't surprise me that there were these that the context is that powerful within the making of it, knowing what the story is, but also when you were making it, where you were making it, how you were making it, and you feel that, and I think that's a lot of the reason it's not just a story of justice, but it's very unique to this movie and how that kind of that power and that magic is shared with an audience.
One of the things that Santiago did, which I think was brilliant, is that the trial was documented from behind. So you never saw the military, you never saw the victims. And what Santiago did is, in a way, as Agustina was saying, that the catharsis of that moment when you took your mask off because you were living again, the catharsis of the camera actually showing their vicious faces and the pain and the victims. So I thought that was a reliving, and how brilliant when a filmmaker actually can somehow do an influx of oxygen in an event that was choked from day one. So that in a way it's the power of filmmaking at the helm, clearly, by Santiago's vision. And I think that by doing that, we got to see them, all of them, in every single moment because the performances were amazing, but you got to see the journey of, oh, this is what's happening now and this is what is going to happen. And I think that also helped what Agustina was saying, that people were talking to each other and people go see the movie. And I think that some people, especially my age, we needed to witness what we didn't. Because we only had a memory and an emptiness. There was nothing else to hold on to and 30,000 names that no longer are. So I think that as a film is concerned, I think that's a true win.
I pause because I really, can relate. I grew up in a home that these ghosts were literally shaped in an unspoken way, shaped everything, was the reason that we were there. It wasn't a conversation, but it shaped everything. So to have something that kind of can put identify a moment in time and
it's also building up. It's about building collective memory.
Yeah.
And there's
around justice.
Around justice, absolutely.
There's something that is happening with the film in Argentina, and probably in other places. Like the people who have been fighting for human rights in Argentina since the 70s, and they were the ones who really fought against the dictatorship. They are using the film to be able to talk again and to make the younger generations to understand how awful was the dictatorship, how important, how difficult it was to recover democracy, and it's great that people from organizations such as Madres de Plaza de Mayo, the Mothers of Plaza de Mayo, was one of the first human rights organizations who started to, ¿cómo se dice denunciar? Denounce.
Just for people that don't know, let's tell them what Las Madres de Plaza Mayo is.
When the kidnaps started, massively, of course, the mothers started to go to the police stations to ask for their children in the police stations. Nobody told them where they were. So, but in that police station, they met other mothers who were asking for where their children were. So they started to realize that it was a connection and they could fight together and organize together, and they started to organize a walk around the Plaza de Mayo, which is the main square of Argentina.
And because any kind of conversation about this was completely forbidden by the military government, the way they identified themselves was wearing the white
handkerchief.
Yeah. The white handkerchief.
And they walked every Thursday.
And they still do.
Rain or sunshine, and they walked, and they were called the crazy ones. They were called all kinds of names, and it didn't matter. They walked, they walked, they walked, they walked, and they walked, and they continued to walk, and they never turned their emptiness into violence. They continued to walk with the love for their kids. That, I think, is what is important, that the kids are now learning, that you don't fight violence with violence. And those parents, those moms and those grandmothers continue to look for those kids, and there's 133 grandkids that have been identified through the years. I think it was 3 weeks ago, right, Agustina? That two more came forward saying that who they were. But those women walked and walked and walked, and in a way, I can only say this for me, but for me, having marched with some of those kids, this is my dedication to them. This film belongs 100 in my heart, 100%. It belongs to those women.
I think that if there's anything else, it's a good way to end the Q&A, in my opinion. I know there's more you want to say.
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah. No, I mean it's great. I want what Victoria said. Yeah, if we can share this film to someone or to a group of people, we will Like we will pick the Madres of Plaza de Mayo. I think they are an example.
In English, they're known as the mothers of the disappeared.
Yeah.
If that sounds familiar to you.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. But I remember that from growing up
Yeah, they did a magnificent work, and not long ago, like 2 weeks ago, they discovered. They're still working on discovering the babies that were
babies that are
kidnapped.
and other people that are around 40 something.
Yeah.
They're regaining their own identities.
Yes.
We have to do a film about that, Shum, right?
Yeah. Argentina 1986. Coming soon.
Bravo.
Well done.